So, Kevin Marrier from Milestone Systems. We are a manufacturer of video management software. I'll talk about that in a quick second. But my presentation today, a little different from last year's presentation, is around automating the sales processes and utilizing this to create this, meaning VisibleThread, to create a competitive advantage. So I'll click through here. So today's agenda. I did a little ad-libbing on the bottom while we were presenting. So we know words matter. We know results matter. I thought I would add my own little piece here. Knowledge, pay, and timing matters in getting those good results. And those are personal experiences that I've been able to, I think, leverage or take advantage of with my 3 years of working with VisibleThread. Specifically, working in Denmark now, I have to say I'm an import, I'm an expat, and we pay high taxes in Denmark. 56% is the top tax bracket. So don't complain about taxes being too high here. Yeah, of course, yes. That's for sure. In Denmark, though, they consider it a national pride to pay taxes. I fortunately am on a flat tax for 5 years, so I only pay 34%. That's the low tax bracket. But pay matters, timing matters, knowledge matters, and those are things that I've been able to improve in my own professional development as a director of large account business development, which is my current title. And by using VisibleThread, I think you can also prioritize these things in your own career path. And who doesn't want more pay? Who doesn't want to be more knowledgeable? And who doesn't want to have better timing? I often talk to people about VisibleThread as it makes me look like I'm Superman. Of course, it pisses off my Danish colleagues because I just know more than they do. And I do get paid more than they do. Another kind of interesting story about VisibleThread and spreading the word. I was flying. I upgraded myself to business class on the way back from Denmark. I figured, it's a long flight. And I was guy sitting next to me. I'm from Minnesota originally. You may have picked up my accent. The Rochester, Mayo, and IBM have big facilities in Rochester, Minnesota, which is south of where I live. And this guy asked me, boy, he says, you're working really hard on this flight. And I said, yeah. He says, are you speaking or doing some presentation? I said, yeah, I'm going to Washington, D.C. and blah, blah, blah. And he says, may I ask what it is you're speaking on? And I said, natural language processing. He said, what? And I went on to discuss that with him. He literally took his phone. He had internet. He texted some of his colleagues at IBM. And they sent back a message in instant messaging and said they don't believe that what I'm presenting on even exists. I thought that was quite funny. He asked for my card and yeah, exactly. How is this possible? So a funny little story. So spreading the word, and I am a bit persuasive, 95% on the persuasive scale against Danes. They're not very persuasive. But that being said, it is a good skill. So today I want to talk about 4 things that relate to knowledge, pay, and timing. And those things matter. Those start with just how did we use VisibleThread? This is basically a call to you guys, follow me. Follow what we've done, and you can achieve the same things. And if you have questions, feel free to email me after. I can share my card. Last year we had Melissa. Is Melissa here? She stepped out. So Melissa contacted me last year. I took a half hour out of my day to work with their team on what we were doing. They were new to the conference last year. You were on that call. Okay, there you go. So and I took that call also from Denmark. So second is so sharing is caring, as we say in Denmark. Including money that you pay in taxes. So how can using VisibleThread be strategic to Milestone? And this is something that the more strategic you are, the more you get paid. So this is something that is a little self-serving. Third is what type of VisibleThread customer is Milestone? So this is just so you can understand how we are versus you, and you may see some differences. In that, I'll talk about our primary purpose is what we call the Global Bid Desk. I have our America's Global Bid Desk Manager, Tom, with me today. So, Tom. Tom's based out of the East Coast in Atlanta. And fourth is VisibleThread and Qvidian. So so you talk about ecosystems. We're also a software company. Ecosystems are important to us. Yes, that's jargon. But Qvidian is one of the tools that we use, and I have some interesting little demos. Hopefully we can get to work here. Any Qvidian users in the audience? Not doing a sales pitch for Qvidian, but they are a very good company to work with. Okay, so that's what we want to cover. So I'm going to go through the slides, some of them fairly quickly. So our journey. So 2014, I'm in RFP hell, as I like to refer to it, or some of you may refer to it as copy-paste hell. And I hate it. This is no way to make more money. It's no way to be more knowledgeable, and timing, it's just a time suck. So all bad. So I thought there's got to be a better way. Googled the heck out of this, found APMP. Any APMP members here? Yeah, so you guys know. So asked my boss, VP of our corporate business unit, said, hey, I need $4,000 to fly to Chicago through Minneapolis and attend this conference to find out how to do things better. The very first day, I bumped into Fergal standing in the vendor area. I bought it basically on the spot. I shared with him, I said, hey, I don't think you've got it. At least you're not communicating. I said, what you're doing is business intelligence for words, not for numbers. You liked that so much, you even turned it into a pitch that year. I'm a business intelligence guy also. Part of being strategic, you have to understand how to work with big data sets, big numbers. And I said, you're using all of the BI principles. What I didn't realize is that actually there's a science behind this, and I'll talk just a little bit about the science. So in 2014, I flew back to Denmark, said, hey, we need to buy this, set up a demo. My boss, of course, said, don't believe it. It's not possible. Shouldn't work this way. We demoed it. We turned around a contract, and we started our VisibleThread journey. 2015, we started a pilot. So we hired our first proposal manager out of Denmark, an American. A few of us in Denmark. Hiring an English speaker, first language, is important in Europe, because if you're going to translate anything from English, and English is the primary language, then you need to make sure that the writing's good, or otherwise your translation costs go through the roof, because they got to first fix your English in order to actually translate it. So we also, at the end of 2015, things were going really well. I said, I still just don't quite understand what the technology is. And so we discovered the science behind VT. Natural language processing, or NLP, is the science. So 2016, this year, we regionalized it. So we had so much success. We quadrupled our investment. We localized. We 3 independent teams running our global bid desk. Tom manages the Americas. We have Gavin managing the EMEA, and we have another gentleman running out of Sydney, Australia, Melbourne, running our APAC region. We're all using a common system, common process, common tools, common content, and we're localizing, which was a really good step for us. Amazing that you can do that. 2017, which is next year, and what we're planning is how we partner enable this. And partner enabling it is the scale out. That's an exciting time. And that's also where the knowledge piece comes in, and our teaming concepts of being able to capture the knowledge. So a quick background. This isn't that, earth-shattering to people. I did show this last year. The main things around our global bid desk, and the primary purpose of buying this was exactly what you were talking about from the product standpoint. It's hard for humans to do this. It's a waste of time. So we wanted to increase win rate, increase profitability, increase retention. Those are tough things to do for humans also. But if we could take VisibleThread and turn what is a week's worth of work for one individual into what is 1 hour's worth of work, that's Superman style. And we were able to do that. When we looked at where we wanted to prioritize our initial investment in 2014, it was in not in A, not in C, and not in D. We actually started in B, which was the proposal side of this, being able to create better proposals. And we did that because we saw if we could be successful in the middle, then we could work up or down from our process based upon how our organization responded. We actually didn't know, but this was the easiest place for us to pick up. There were no internal competition. There was no jobs that were going to be impacted. So just my advice, start with things that people hate to do and you will have no enemies. If you start with things that people are already doing or love to do, they will make sure you are not successful. Change is difficult for people within an organization, and for us, starting where nobody wanted to do this work and we could make it very fast really was a nice way to start. But when we looked at the process, this is our process. It's a simplified Shipley process. I mean, the 96 steps, let's be honest, is tough for most people to understand. I mentioned 96 steps in slides for about most of the 2014, and people just said, Kevin, you lost us on step 2. Could you skip the 96 steps and just tell us what you want? Well, I said, let's try to figure that out. So in 2014, we didn't do that many proposals. 2015, we did a lot of proposals. In 2016, we are on track to do more than 200. And what you notice, though, and this is an interesting kind of follow me suggestion, a lesson learned, is we have a really good front side to this process. But when we start moving to the sales organization and our reseller partners, it just drops off. I mean, look at the numbers, 186 in 2015, 6 demos to win. I mean, our chief sales marketing officer said, okay, that's not a success story, Kevin. I said, well, actually, I think it is. We did 6 and we did 2 last year. So I think 2015 was a 3 times improvement. He didn't buy that. However, it was good enough on the front side to say that we should continue forward and we should scale out. The interesting thing and how we really position this is that we're showing the numbers of opportunities that we supported. The numbers of opportunities are 10 times this. We have 10% market share in the global market. So that's a big set of opportunities, and we have no way the capability to do that internally. And the process is so fast that this is why 2017, the partner enablement, the crowdsourcing, to use a term, is the only way forward for us to really address a significant market share and leapfrog our competition and break away from the pack. So you can see we've got an easy way to work off. And this, if anybody wants this presentation, also as I shared with the people who contacted me last year and provided to the users here, you can have a copy of this also. So this gets me to the end of 2015 in the science. So how many have ever heard of natural language processing before? Okay, geez, lots of smart people here. I said it to my boss. He said, NLP what? And I said, I don't know, but read this paper. It's very interesting. So this 10-page paper is really dense. I had to reread it for this presentation on the flight here. Boy, I almost fell asleep. Well, actually, I did fall asleep a few times. But I highlighted the parts that were interesting. And so I've summarized this for you. Now, looking at this, NLP, definition-wise, you can see there, is a range of computational techniques for the automated analysis and representation of human language. Whew, that's a big one. But it is. And that's what we're doing. We're using automated analysis, in effect, computers to do the work that's hard for humans. And this human language, which is mainly unstructured, is produced, of course, for human consumption, is not directly machine processable. So how do we use machines to process human language? That was what this paper was about. And I can also provide a copy of this paper. Very, very interesting read. But I kind of picked up some main points for you. So NLP. So why use NLP? So I used NLP in 2015 at the end of to really justify why we need to scale out our business in 20 16 and 17, and why this is a game changer for us strategically. This was moving us from an operational IT investment for transactional support, bids, to something that could be much more strategic. And again, with strategy and strategic comes knowledge, pay, and improved timing. So a little self-serving. So using NLP, made me seem even smarter to my Dane colleagues. Using an acronym, of course, always makes you look smarter. And being able to then talk about, how we could leapfrog, which I like this paper about. But basically, there's 3 curves. And the time scale on the bottom is interesting because if you look at it, it goes all the way to 2050. I mean, we're a long ways away from that, which basically means we're early adopters. We are early adopters in the commercialization of the technology called NLP. Early adopters should mean for you more money. And if you think about early adoption, you can think about just doing things that should not be possible. So today we are in what's called the syntax curve, which basically means what we're doing with VisibleThread is, from a science standpoint, is a technology or a concept called bag of words. So this specifies the way groups of words are to be arranged. That's actually pretty easy to understand why words matter and why VisibleThread is a great tool, because it does this automatically for us. Now, when I started to explain this internally, people started to get it. I don't know if it was NLP or what, but they also maybe wanted to be smart, and the science, makes you look smart. What's interesting, though, is the second curve, the semantics, and the bag of concepts, which specifies well-formed expressions and what they're supposed to mean. Now, this is where we're trying to get to. I had an epiphany when I was reading this paper that I suddenly realized the value of LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. It wasn't because I could get a better job, which of course I think is interesting on LinkedIn. It wasn't because Facebook, I can waste a lot of time stalking my former colleagues or friends, or Twitter, just watching the insane short, comments. But what I realized is that when you have an aggregate body of human language that big, those companies, the science that they're using is to do this. They're trying to figure out what all of that means and get towards, and the first company that figures it out gets to the pragmatic curves, the bag of narratives, and specifies how the contextual information can be leveraged. Those guys win, and they win it all. So suddenly I got motivated. I got to stick with the curves, because if this is the way the market is going to move, then I could continue to be very strategic and have good opportunities for the next 20 years before I retire when I'm 67, because I am an American and we don't have pensions like we have in Denmark. But what I did realize is that it started to formulate a strategy and a roadmap. It started to give me ideas of where I could take this technology versus where I was being presented it could solve the problems. Again, moving from a transaction support, from an IT investment, to something more strategic. And then we got support for it. So bag of words and bag of concepts is what's realistically possible. Bag of words or syntax is really what is the most achievable today and easiest to understand. And VisibleThread does this great. Moving to the other two takes humans involved because the computers just are not good enough. On the side, I'm also a product manager inside Milestone, and I work on the hardware. And what I do on the hardware is I work a lot with Intel and where Intel is going. And you should know that the next version of Intel's chipsets, which is being released in the coming months, is adding artificial intelligence. What they're getting ready for is the second curve. And when you start looking at servers that are running Intel Xeon E5 version 4 chipsets, very technical, what they're moving towards is the ability to start programming neural networks. They're figuring it out. Now, they're working, of course, for Google and Amazon and Twitter and LinkedIn because they need to be able to process this information. And if you understand that the machines are getting smart, they are getting smart. And on the visual side, we are able to analyze cameras, video streams like you wouldn't believe. And we're utilizing this same graphics processor technology in order to do on the video side what's happening NLP-wise with words. So there is a science. Understanding a little bit about the science is very interesting. It's a good read. I recommend that you do it and you follow where we've come from. So, but from a VT standpoint, how do I take VT today, move from the typical VT user, which is what's called keyword spotting? What you're doing scientifically is called keyword spotting. It's actually a science. It's a set of algorithms. You can read about it in this paper. It's quite interesting. I had no idea that somebody smarter than me had figured it out, Fergal. And then somebody, that he learned it from, and he's commercializing it. But the two things you're using in keyword spotting with VT is right there, discovery and compliance. Most of you are probably using compliance. Few of you are probably using discovery. Discovery is the untapped opportunity. Discovery is where there's knowledge that wasn't where there was just words. So moving from words to knowledge, you have to use the VT discovery, and you have to be a human to do it because machines can't do it yet. Keyword yet. So, but the dictionaries is the thing that is really interesting. And this is called lexical affinity. And this is what we're using from a science standpoint and within VT, whether you know that or not. But the concept within VT that isn't exploited enough, as I think, is the dictionaries. The dictionaries are what create the affinity. And the affinity is basically, we use it in a competitive analysis and in product marketing. So you're talking about marketing, and marketing wants to use this. The new marketing use cases, those are in the affinity side. So what you're seeing is a combination of discovery and the tool that automatically creates dictionaries, VT, using discovery. If you didn't know, you can right-click, export, CSV file, and then re-import, and you have a dictionary. That should make it easy. Again, Superman type easy. Then you go into the other side. Now you can organize those dictionaries, and now you can really carve it up in a whole new way. I love the weasel words. I mean, that's first thing we're going to do is put a weasel word dictionary in there and help our marketing and executives not be weasels. They're going to love that. And I have a meeting on Monday where I'm going to explain to them weasels and how they're being weaselly. In Danish, of course. Not. Oh, and by the way, the VP of Marketing is there, Kirsten. She's also Danish. They don't take these things too well, but you got to have a little bit of... Danish humor is very sarcastic, so if you get there enough, you can learn how to be sarcastic. They don't laugh, but they get it. So again, I thought you might like to just kind of follow me. So what you're doing today in the typical is keyword spotting. There's a science behind it. What you're moving towards, or you could do with the dictionary use in the current tool that is today, is more on the lexical affinity side. Is that interesting? So typical roadmap. So not only did we do this, but we hire a lot of very smart students, half my age, so 23-ish. And why we hire them is because we don't have to pay them very much, because as a student in Denmark, you get free college, free master's degree, free PhD, free, zero cost, and you get paid to go to school, which is amazing. You don't get paid a lot, but you get paid enough to live, and the key is they encourage you to work, but you can only work 20 hours a week. If you work more than 20 hours a week, then we take away in Denmark your pay, which is kind of interesting. So they work just up to 20 hours a week. Now, what's interesting about this process is the students are, as you can imagine, mega smart, smarter than I am. And so what they're always looking for projects. We primarily hire, people that are working on their master's degree from the Copenhagen School of Business. And I have one, Sven, he's from Germany. He came up to Copenhagen just for this school. Speaks Chinese, entrepreneurial program, mega smart guy. I married a German, so of course it's a little bit, I can practice my German. Second is we have a Caroline is also in Copenhagen School of Business, and she was writing a project on or looking for a thesis to write, and so she does some of our competitive intelligence. So I shared with this, and so she wrote a 49-page thesis about how VisibleThread could, with this hypothesis or NLP, bring value to Milestone. The conclusion was yes. Or what type of value, and it ended up being both transactional and strategic. So very interesting that, they did this. She had a group of people. They actually included some interviews from VisibleThread in this, but did a very scientific approach to this. I think also I wanted to share with you is in their paper, their thesis they wrote was also about how do you adopt this technology. And they were a bit critical of myself and Sven, my student worker. In the early days, they said, it's kind of like they just used their gut feeling to try to do this. And that's probably true. We are Americans. We tend to shoot first and ask questions later. And I said, she said, well, but what you actually did is you did it right. Even though from an academic standpoint, it looks like you did it wrong. I mean, you didn't really research it. You didn't publish any RFPs. You didn't go through this whole process. You just, you saw it, you bought it, and you started working with it. She said, but actually that's the right way. Because if you deploy it, you can then find out what it does. So aim small, miss small is the way I would say it. Then second is you can innovate on it. Because now I know what it is. It's NLP. Okay, now we're cooking with gas. And then third is you can propagate it. You can expand it. And that's actually an IT adoption model. And if you'd like to have a copy of her paper, she specifies what it is and how to apply it and roll it out. Very low cost, very low risk, very fast time to market. And if you're the person doing this, good knowledge, good pay, and good timing for you. So this is how we did our deployment. Not your big business, spend a lot of time, a lot of consultants approach. They won't get it. That I can guarantee. So how can this be strategic for Milestone Systems? So you should know Milestone System is the leading, and I mean #1 video manufacturer worldwide, video management system manufacturer worldwide. We were acquired for just under $500 million in 2014. I was a shareholder, so happy me. However, I was paying U.S. taxes, so not so happy me in that case, because there is a 56% tax bracket if you didn't know. But in the end, it was a really exciting time for us. I would have preferred we went public, but we didn't. We did an M&A, and who acquired us was a company, Canon. Maybe you've heard of them. They make that camera there. Or is that Nikon? Ugh. Yeah, sorry. It's a bad camera. But Canon, as you may or may not know, that camera business is contracting big time. But Canon is a Japanese company. Japanese work on 100-year plans. A midterm plan is 50 years. Then they have every 3 years reviews of these plans. I mean, they do some thinking, these Japanese. And in their 100-year plan, apparently we were in there somehow, even though we've only been in business since 1998. And what your market share was. And the analysts were looking to create a new definition of what video management system was to appease their Chinese customers, which you'll lose your #1 position because somebody was cheating. And so we did a project. We ran it through the analyst company. We identified that there was no compliance language in these requirements to define what product type you have. This definition. So in 2016, they accepted our invitation. We've met with them, and you notice now that the definition has moved from something that was very loose, not what we call absolute in a bid desk or in a proposal management style. And we showed how things had to be compliant. And of course, I've highlighted that compliance language there to make and used in an absolute way for that. And what that will do strategically, and we've been able to already prove this, is this will ensure that we will remain #1 overall video management system in the Windows segment for the foreseeable future. So nothing to do with VisibleThread, but taking all the best practices and now applying it in a part of our business that aligns it with the strategic goals. I presented this to our CEO 2 weeks ago. He approved it. So as an example, of what we do and words matter in this particular case because the words were what defined the market and then who was number one in that market. So, a little brief, we're a standalone company within Canon Group. We sell software. We also sell hardware. Canon, of course, is a great company to have as our parent corporation. You may not know, but they're the fourth largest, 4 years in a row now, patent filer in the world. They are actually an intellectual property rights management company with the stated goal that Canon is to have some part in every photo taken in the world by 2020. To have some part of that photography that's going on in the world. And they are in a position to do that. That's an amazing strategy. We're a part of that. So at a glance, we've got, from a milestone standpoint, we've got a very good business, lots of countries, lots of partners. We've got a global operation. We're breaking into 3 main theaters, as I said, the Americas. Tom's managing that for us. We've got the EMEA, Middle East, Europe, and Africa. And then on the right, we've got our APAC region. 150,000 customers, and we're only 10% of the market, which gives you an idea of the size. It's quite a big industry. 26% compound annual growth since 2006. So if you know compound annual growth, the farther out you go, the lower the number typically gets. So having a compound annual growth of 26% over this period of time is a good objective, or a good feat, I should say. Product marketing wise, we have a software. We have actually a few versions of that software. From a recorder, we have hardware. But my point in showing this is that the product marketing, not just marketing, but specifically product marketing, is something that they've asked me to take on, particularly in this space, which I now run this whole portfolio and will in 2017 and 2018 as a strategic initiative. But it was basically I used VisibleThread to reposition this entire portfolio. This is the third time we've tried hardware. As a software company, it's really hard to do hardware. Hardware companies, it's easier to do software, but it's the other way around. It's tough. So I usually take the tough ones. And what was exciting about this is using my NLP, my VisibleThread tools, was able to really drive this portfolio of products forward, and just actually the success I had on the very far right product actually triggered a whole product organization reorg, and I survived and promoted actually. So again, timing matters. So putting the effort into these things can be, but using the tools is great to support your professional objectives. So what type of company is Milestone from a bid desk standpoint? So we used global bid desk was the concept we had. You guys have bid desks, I'm sure, also. But really, our CEO this year had a presentation, and his presentation was really 3 call to actions: set the agenda, change the rules, and lead our industry. So I'm saying that to you because it could be a good mantra for your VT, sponsorship inside your organizations. Why are you wanting to use NLP or VT technologies? Because you can set the agenda better than anybody else. Superhuman speed in setting the agenda. Second is you can change the rules. You can find things that humans can't find in the body of language that you're working with. And being able to change the rules, definitely, as I showed you with the IHS market share analysis, changing the rules can benefit you. And last is then you can lead your industry. And being able to use document automation and proposals is a great way to be able to do that. So this is a quick kind of overview of our bid desk. So we've got over 6,000 customer questions. Why are customer questions interesting? Because it's the customer's language. If customers are asking for this, then we should do it. I use a term called evidence that for me. So when you get into a discussion with Europeans, they tend to have they tend to want to be the authority on many topics. And what's great is that it's the only place, well, it's not the only place, but it's an interesting place because everybody's more liberal to me. So I'm the conservative of the group. But whenever I get into a discussion about an opinion, which is a qualitative, discussion, I often will say, evidence it for me. Evidence for me, I mean, this is just now a theme inside the company, is basically what everybody now says if you want to prove your point or shut down the conversation. And by being able to say evidence it for me, it says, prove to me through the words that the customer is asking for this. Because if you can't prove it, then it's an opinion. And maybe the opinion doesn't matter as much. We've got over 7,000 answers we've been putting into. We've got over 180 source documents we've been able to accumulate. We've developed proposal templates utilizing VisibleThread. Now, one of the key things on VisibleThread we use to create questions. We are all in this industry to automate the answer process, right? You were talking about developing proposals and it's the answers, and sometimes it's late at night, etc. The answers, as Einstein has said famously in the past, don't matter. It's the questions that you seek. And we got this wrong in 2014, but in 2015 we figured it out, and that's how this QA database became important. And it wasn't the answers we were looking for, it was the questions, the evidence. Being able to use VisibleThread to normalize your questions, to be able to automate the aggregation of your questions, I mean, that's power. Now if you have all the questions that everybody's going to ask, and if you have those questions before the debate starts, little political theme there, then you know what to prepare for. Yeah, so you get an unstructured document that is a tender. We have a compliance dictionary, which we've modified using various compliance dictionaries. RFC 2113, I think, is the one that I was going to show you. If you haven't downloaded that dictionary, you should definitely download that dictionary. You should offer a dictionary download service, by the way. But product management to product management. But in all reality, is the better your dictionaries, the better your questions, right? And this is what we're not focusing on is the dictionary. We're focusing on the answers. Follow me. Focus on the questions. You aggregate the questions, then you can have anybody fill out the answers. The answers are easy once you know what the questions are. But knowing what the questions, the winning questions, that's the hard part. That's where the money's at. So, but I'll show an example of how we've aggregated questions. But VisibleThread is how we use this tool to aggregate questions because it does it, for the most part, almost perfectly. Unfortunately, many of our customers write really bad questions. So sometimes it takes a little bit of human intervention to interpret what their questions are. We also then, from a proposal template standpoint, we use VisibleThread to grab the table of contents, and I'll show some examples. Of course, the compliance matrix is a key one. And then we use it from an executive summary standpoint to make sure that the only thing that they're really going to read, the executive summary, at least is written in a decent way. That's the only content which we actually classify as what's called improved content. We had 3 classifications of content. There was available content, which is usually not approved. There was an approved content, which was never usually found, conveniently. Then there was improved content, and that was actually somebody spent some time writing, which was never usually done very well. So those 3 classifications of content for us were important, and we have a lot of content. So we did not want to boil the ocean to improve all our content. We just wanted to make it available and make it approved. So if I look on the far right there, global bid desk team, proposal managers, key account managers, solution engineers, and from a system standpoint, we're really focusing on Salesforce. We've got VisibleThread, we've got Qvidian, of course we got Office 365, and when I look at teaming, just a little complexity. I mean, we have to pull all these things together. Key account managers, proposal managers, technical programs. You guys have the same problem for the right projects. Of course, now this is your pursuit strategy. We have not been that successful in getting the people to do what we want. They are people, and they have an opinion of what they need to do. So we have started to try to do more prioritization. We see this really happening, either A, abandoning it, this will be part of the decision on Monday, or crowdsourcing it and just let the crowd decide what we do. VisibleThread really also enables these winning attributes for us, because this is the knowledge piece that comes in. Leadership, building this common vision, is what evidencing it does. When I can evidence something, I am doing leadership work by creating a common vision of what the customer wants and then proving it. It turned from a qualitative opinion for somebody that knows nothing about the customer to suddenly a quantitative data point that will steer the entire decision-making process. We changed Target Corporation this year in their procurement process by using this. We led the customer, not only our internal people, by using this tool in VisibleThread. Facilitation, strategy development, motivation, data analysis, and management and persuasion. Why do you want to use VisibleThread? Because it makes your team a winning team. It makes the whole team the X-Men, if you want to continue the superhero theme. Those are the team members that we're working with. You, of course, will have different team members, but I love the idea of making this more accessible, making it more modular. The reason is because the best, most valuable information wants to be free. So if you can make that information accessible and free to the marketplace, it's amazing what will happen. And when we looked at how we were looking at teaming and our opportunity assessments, what we were trying to drive was the right win rate, of course, for results, the right project size. But this opportunity assessment process is the one that they never want to do. They just have already decided we're going to do it. So then it becomes, okay, lots of opportunities in, a lot of bullshit work, sorry. And then we find out that it was probably not the wrong thing because we had a few minutes to evidence it. One of the very first things we say is, great, you've decided. Thank you for including me in that decision. Not Danish sarcasm. So then what we ask is, okay, do you have all the source documents? What's a source document? Great. Look for these things. Yeah, we don't have those things. Oh yeah, well, we can't support you if you don't get them. Okay, first drop of projects right there. Second is, give us the control document. What's a control document? It tells you when it's due. It tells you where to send it. And it tells you who you're writing to. Oh yeah, that sounds important. Yeah, good idea. Then we can prioritize our time. We focused our capture planning really on two sides. There's preference win themes and procurement win themes. We are not on preference. We're just not that good. We are on the procurement win theme side, which basically we broke our win themes into 10 different concepts. The leading companies in the world will be on the preference side. We're still number one, but we're just barely number one. And our second, the company's number two, they're on the preference side. They kick our tail in this way. I mean, it's like apples and oranges. It's the yin and the yang. We fortunately just are bigger, and so we're able to steal projects away from them because we're on the procurement side. Now, I don't envy people to be on the procurement side. I wish I could be more on the preference side. There's more pay. But the realities is there are two sides to the coin. Knowing where you are and the type of company you are can help you decide where to invest. Most of us are probably either on the procurement side of the company or on the procurement side of an industry. But the differences for us, it was important to understand this because then it allowed us to focus on where we could win, because we can't win in both today. So when we started to look at where we wanted to invest, what we needed to see was not just in terms of our partners selling it, which is quite obviously the opposite of how our customers are buying it from a time standpoint. What we needed to understand was how they overlapped with each other and where we could provide support. So what we looked at was what things could we provide and where could we make investments. So we prioritized the investments in the middle, in the bid desk, and that's what we focused on. Tom also manages our A&E programs and works closely with our key account managers, which you can see is much earlier in the process, trying to get to the preference side. You may not know the term A&Es, but I'll say it differently. Words matter because they represent the writer's bias. What is bias? Bias is an opinion. He's telling you what matters. When you can identify bias in words, you're moving from one curve to the next of NLP. Bias is what we're focusing on. How do I identify bias in a document and evidence that bias to support a pursuit decision? That's fun. Nothing like going to the party and saying, I got the answers, and by the way, you were wrong. Here's the information. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next project because this is a loser. Now, if you want to give away the software, great, but we're not going to make any money, obviously, because you gave it away. The other side of it is on the solution desk. And this is the opposite of, this is as far into the procurement process as you can get, meaning the customers deployed it. So now how do you pull it back? This is where you really lose money. But we saw an opportunity for our partners that we're losing our own projects. So what we thought is, okay, let's turn it the other way around. Our competition can steal our projects at this phase if we don't do a very good job here. But in order to do a very good job of the solution desk side, you have to know what the requirements were. Because it's going bad because somebody's not delivering on the customer's requirements. And I hate those projects. But boy, you learn a lot of what works and what doesn't when you go into you get dropped into the military zone of these projects. But it all comes back to a contract at this point. What did you say you were going to do? Who was going to do it? And how did you do it? Or how did you not do it, to be specific? And this was a way for us to do internally to improve our products, our delivery, and our long-term positioning here. So again, looking at both customers buying and your selling and where you are at in this process is a good understanding of the tools that you can use. We've used the word business intelligence. We've used the word market intelligence. What I want to share with you, and somebody touched on this earlier about familiarity of the customer's language, customer intelligence. Customer intelligence allows me to look like a subject matter expert for a customer. I took Target Corporation, I took their words, I used them, I replaced my words with their words, and suddenly it looked like I worked for Target. Now, when they can read something that's very familiar with them, what happens to their comprehension? It goes sky high because it's relevant. They understand it. It's their jargon used in a good way. Now, if I can speak with their jargon to them, their comprehension goes up, then what happens to your chance of their preference or bias to your proposal? It looks like they wrote it. And how is it that you could know more about their own requirements and present them in a more readable fashion than they could present them back to you? There's money there. I'll share that with you. And that will change the process. Now, in order to be successful in that, to scale, you have to have salespeople that get it. And that's not easy. Because salespeople are, often coin operated. Put a quarter in them and you get 25 minutes worth of time. Then they're on to the next thing. And they look for another quarter. Yeah, I can tell them that. But the key thing is that they know it. They admit it. But in order to show them that they could be better at this, you have to be able to provide them with some coaching. And what we try to do in this case is coach them on the proposal. Then we remotely, I called in to Target from Copenhagen, and all I did was make sure that they were sticking to the script. They didn't have to write the script. They just had to read the script. I mean, that also took a quarter to put into them. I had to tape their, mind off and just read the text. And then I focused on read it dynamically. Read it like it matters. Words matter. Emphasis, intonation, pause, speed of speech. This is how you present information to humans, like I'm doing to you. Did you notice I slowed down there? When you do that, it increases your thinking that this is important, whatever I'm saying. Now, that at the end is ultimately what we wanted our salespeople to do. So we broke a group of them out, key account managers. David King is our best guy. This guy is really good at it. But keeping him to the script, that's tough. He just wants to go off rails. But he can do it. If you give him these words: keyword analysis, compliance matrix, table of contents, theme analysis, and preference analysis. When we can tell them the preference, we can tell them what to steer away from. When we can tell them the keywords, we only give them 10. They just got to use those 10 over and over and over. And if they get off script, we yank them back and we pull it back on script. We talk about the compliance. The table of contents is what makes it look really super organized. But it's the customer's table of contents. And of course, we get that from VisibleThread. We're not going to write the table of contents. To make it the most familiar, you have to organize it the way the customer has organized it. Now, last is VisibleThread and Qvidian coming together. So why is VT important? I've already talked to you. Here's some more. Execute, discover, analyze, compare, prioritize. I mean, that's kind of our little workflow. Proposal, development worksheets, the dictionaries, discriminators. So hopefully you guys know what that is. Win themes, pursuit decisions, hot buttons, issues, and motivators, familiarity, compliance, table of contents. I've talked about all those things. Giving you some examples of that. This is, we extract this. This is nothing we do to create. I mean, this makes you look superhuman when you got a table of contents proposal template and you just copy and paste the text in. Boy, I'm smart. But it's all in line. VT work streams around the proposal development, the QA database, how we create the questions, the executive summary, how we measure the quality of that, and then being able to extract our feature advantage benefit statements. But now I bring in VisibleThread with Qvidian. So Qvidian, proposal, automation, tool, hosted. We have 15 licenses of Qvidian we use in our teams, plus the SEs. You don't have to license, which is nice. But this is in effect our knowledge database. So everybody's going to the same place. So the same question gets asked once, it gets reused forever. And I could do a quick demo of this. But what I wanted to show, and what I thought was really exciting for this audience, is that just recently Qvidian added an Excel spreadsheet template to it, which was been missing, which really was something. I was about ready to ask Virgil to give me a compliance matrix in Word versus in Excel, because Qvidian couldn't suck in the Excel, and SharePoint doesn't let people edit in Excel. So Excel was kind of tough, but they solved it. And so now we have a new tool from Qvidian where now you can just upload the Qvidian document and we can actually start copying, pasting, and doing auto search, which I can show you. It's pretty cool how this automation-wise works. And I think you'll like the demonstration. So now what you're really seeing on the right is VT, but now you're seeing VT inside Qvidian. And from there, I can now manage my project, assign questions, search for answers, fill in text, and I've got a compliance matrix that I've basically now have automated and work towards the proposal. The other reason why I think this is important is more companies go to e-commerce-based bid management. The proposal templates are going away, and their preference is more for spreadsheets. So this also is why I think this is something that Qvidian added, was to keep into the spreadsheet world, because that's the only document that you could upload in some of these bid processes. So looking at it together, I mean, from a Qvidian standpoint, this is where we create the documents. This is how we keep our answers and questions. This is where we assign jobs to our subject matter experts. This is where we submit content and provide feedback. It's also where we keep track of all the localization. In Qvidian, they have a whole localization track too. So you can, if you have a source in English, you can make 26 versions of that in whatever language. That cuts your cost down at 2 to 5 cents per word. Localization can be expensive. So, you know, what we're able to do with our templates is create these in an automated way. Very clean. It has our partner branding capability. Of course, we follow some best practices for the executive summary. We're able to include graphics in our Qvidian system, so it does both graphics and text, which is nice. And in the end, we're able to produce, you know, some pretty interesting documents. What we're starting to move towards is the partner enablement. So now we're basically putting a front end for partner requests to come in, so we can start scaling up the number of proposals and give them a simple registration process, give them an automatic project discount because we sell through partners. And this is how we see our 2017 plan kind of scaling out. So who would like to see a demo?